When everything in the world is out to get you, and you're at a loss for content to consume, there's a podcast for you to guide you on through, and it all starts with this catchy little tune. I'm TD.
And I'm MPAG.
And we're here to save the day with the brand new Versus podcast. Normally on a Friday.
I thought you said Wednesday.
Music news, who beat who, and everything in between. So cast your words aside, make sure you're sitting comfortably. We're here to make you laugh, probably till you cry.
Dude, we can't make you
Rest
cry.
assured, there's a reason it's TD and MPAG time.
Well, I mean, if there was going to be a way to start this, I suppose that's as good a way as any.
Mate, 4 days ago, I was sat at home thinking a podcast would be a good idea. And then that monstrosity is now part of my life and out there for everybody to see for the rest of time. So,
I mean, I feel like the risk of losing any credibility that I've managed to slowly acquire over these many years of being a musician, I immediately put into question.
it was like everything was a wonderful idea. And now we're 15 seconds into our first podcast and I'm already starting to question my decisions.
Well, there's no turning back now.
No turning back now,
You can't go back. You just can't.
TD and MPAG versus the world, my friend.
We're here. We're taking it on. You bring it forward, world. We've got this. I mean, if someone had said to me, I don't know, even probably 4 weeks ago, Toby, on a Sunday afternoon, you're going to be superimposing two caricature faces onto Super Mario characters. And then editing it to look like the loading screen of Super Mario Bros. 3 to put out, I probably would have been like, yeah, fair, that could be a thing. But, and it is a thing now. So there you go.
Dude, I love the commitment to it. That's my favourite part is we don't do anything. I think we're both renowned for not really doing anything by halves. And so far, this has definitely proven to be the same. It's just, I don't know. It's what a mad idea. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see how this works out, I suppose.
Well, that's it. And I mean, if you're listening to this now and you never see a following episode, you know exactly how that went, world. So congratulations. It's like, oh, they did that podcast once. Wonder what happened to those guys. I don't know. They went missing, and never heard of again. And the band's disappeared.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be great. It's a cease and desist has already been filed.
I mean, Nintendo are probably outside my window with a sniper right now, being like, you take on Mario, bro, you're coming for us.
Super Mario, brother. What you gonna do when Super Smash Bros. Come for you, brother?
I mean, I think have you played the new Super Smash Bros?
I can't say that I have, to be totally honest. I'm one of these people that seems to have bypassed Nintendo since the
Game Boy.
No, I mean the Game Boy Color is one of the best things ever. But what was that weird? Oh, the Wii, the one where you used to dance around the kitchen and stuff, like playing.
You see
bowling
that's
stuff.
for me. I had an N64, I had a Super Nintendo, and I had a GameCube, and the GameCube was wicked. And then they were like, those really cool controllers, everything that everyone else is doing. Well, we're going to give you joysticks, and I was like, hey, I'm out. I'm out.
We're going to take you back to the 80s.
And then they were like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done that. So let's do it again with another console and call it the Wii U. And I'm like, the Wii? What sort of name is that for a console? Xbox, PlayStation, it is a box with an X on it, so that works. A Wii. I mean, what? Is that a yes? Is it like a yes in terms of French?
I mean, if you're going to name it after something when it's as bad as it was in so many ways, you may as well name it after urine.
Wow.
And I guess that's kind of what they've done.
Wow. I mean, if we hadn't fired shots at Nintendo, mate, in the first minute, you've just laid down.
I mean,
the
I'm just going to say now, it's like, welcome to the podcast. I have just lowered the tone. So,
it took less time than I thought it would.
I mean, you know me. I like to do things.
That's quite a good lead on. So I'm Mr. Joe Blogs or Josephine Blogs or anyone with the surname Blogs in this current situation of the world. Hello, Mr. MPAG. What is the Versus podcast? Tell me.
The Versus podcast is basically myself and my good friend TD, who you might have met.
That's me. I'm here as well.
He's there. Basically, trying to give you guys out there an insight into the music industry from the point of view of people like ourselves who are involved in it and work in a multitude of different ways. But in a sort of with a light-hearted flavour. Imagine I'm like Salt Bay. I'm just like, boom, just giving you that light-hearted flavour. I mean, I've already managed to take down one of the giants of computer gaming within the first 2 minutes, and we hadn't even introduced the podcast by that point. So hopefully,
no, that's true. I mean,
that
hopefully,
gives you an insight.
Let's hope they're listening. Let's hope they know that no one is safe.
I mean, I highly doubt that Nintendo are going to give a flying donkey about anything that we're doing. Do you see what I did there, by the way? Just
I did, yeah.
Those swears. It's nice, right?
It is, yeah.
But yeah, it's really just that. And we're trying to just give an insight, have a little, share some of our own experiences. And yeah, try and just give you some fun, wholesome content that's a bit different to the things that we do in our other projects. Shameless plug, obviously Hollow and City. So yeah, we're both involved in those things and they're both important to us, but we wanted to do something else that was a bit of fun. And in truth, yeah, this started as a silly idea about 4 days ago at the time of recording. And now here we are trying to actually record our first podcast. And
I mean, you've summed that up really well. I mean, I was going to be like, so if you'd been like, oh, so TD, what is the Versus podcast? I'd be like, it's Bants, and that would probably been the end of my description.
I mean, I probably should just stop talking. Really, that's kind of that's about.
No, that was really good. I think you've done a good job there. So yeah, essentially, we're just we're going to cover, like, in theory, it'll be every Friday. We're going to have guests on, and we're going to cover like the music news of the week, which will probably this could lead on to that conversation, I suppose. But it's not taking itself too seriously. I tend to find that most of the time when I'm laughing, it's normally when I'm on the phone with you anyway. So it was like, well, I don't actually know if I find this funny and you find this funny, or if anyone else finds this funny. So I was like, instead of just having these conversations every week on the phone, let's record them and then confirm that it is in fact, yes, only us that finds it funny.
I mean, you're not wrong. To be fair, that since the idea for this podcast came about, I have done nothing but laugh.
Dude, I legitimately cried the other night in bed. You sent, I think it's when you sent me the intro for the first time, and I literally couldn't breathe. I literally could not breathe. I thought, this is it. R.I.P. Old Yeller, take me out to the field. Put me out to pasture. I've had a good life. You know what I mean?
Mate, I completely understand. I think at a time like this specifically, obviously, we're starting recording this. We started to produce this podcast during the crisis with COVID-19. So obviously there's a lot of stuff going on that's pretty bad in the world right now, and it's all very uncertain. So for us to do something that was a little bit outside the box and something that's really, it's put a smile on our faces so far, and hopefully it'll put some smiles on some faces outside of this.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, like we are, do you reckon we'll look back on this in like season 8 when we're like hopefully in a big studio somewhere going, do you remember 2020 and like, like the PTSD of the NARM choppers going over the top again, like where we just sat in our rooms like talking about Nintendo on a podcast.
Dude, I mean, I like to think that in 8 years' time, when that's the case and we are in a big studio somewhere else, we'll still be talking about Nintendo, and that I won't have been put in prison because I was very rude about them on the first podcast. I'm really sorry, Nintendo. I absolutely love the Game Boy and apparently the Switch, which is actually what I was initially talking about, to go full circle, is that everybody in the world seems to own a Nintendo Switch but me at the moment.
To be fair, I have one, but I'm not playing Animal Crossing because apparently everyone is playing Animal Crossing because, I mean, apparently all I can tell is it's basically about sort of like a raccoon who's a bit of a thieving scumbag who makes you pay for things with berries that you have to dig up off the island. So, I mean, please, if you're listening to this and I've got that wrong, then correct me. But from what I can gather, that's basically it. Oh, and the islands seem to have a massive, massive pest problem in the form of tarantulas the size of people.
Dude, I mean, Animal Crossing is something that's like bypassed me in my life pretty much all the way through. I'm not a massive gamer anyway. It's not something that I've really...
I mean, I have this problem where like Animal Crossing to me, I'm like, that looks dumb. Like, oh, what are you playing today? Well, get this game right, yeah. Oh, I've bought this house off this evil thieving raccoon and he's charging me through the roof mortgage. So I've got to go and like do all these chores for people around the village to pay off my loan. To then get another loan to get a bigger house to continue. And I'm like, mate, that sounds lame. At the same time, I'm there building like a beach hut on Minecraft. So I kind of go, well, if people are happy doing it, I guess that's fine.
Dude,
but,
that's what it's all about. I mean, my life's crappy enough, really, without me having to do it all over again, but at the dictatorship of a raccoon. So that's it, that's the reason why I haven't done that so far. So if I am wrong and I should be buying a Switch. I mean, there are times when, particularly when I've been in the Hollow Van on tour, where everyone's been playing Switch except me, and I just like sad and lonely.
Yeah, you do look a little bit Oliver Twist there.
It is a little bit me. I'm like the little orphan Annie, just in the corner, just like,
people are throwing crisp packets at you,
Yeah, that's exactly it, man.
It's just terrible. It's terrible. But no. So I mean, going on to that, that's in the news, isn't it? Animal Crossing, everyone's playing that. Have you seen, I haven't spoken to you about this yet, have you seen all that stuff going on with that band Trapt?
Now, this has just been everywhere, hasn't it? And yet the problem is that were they ever relevant? I'm not even sure I care, even with all this stuff going on. I think it's brilliant, but I think we need to talk about it because I'm like,
it's just
hit me with it.
It's like Twitter has become an episode of Peep Show because it is so cringe. It's unreal. Now, being that little bit older than you, so essentially older than time itself, I remember when Trapt came around the first time, and I remember Headstrong being on like one of those, Kerrang used to have like a CD every couple of episodes or issues, whatever it was.
Yes,
and I think Headstrong was on one of those, and I was like, being my little Criminal Damage black flares and black t-shirts and like, my favourite album was Infest by Papa Roach, and ironically it still is, come at me, bruh. So I remember hearing that song and being like, oh my God, my mind is blown. And then I bought the first record and I was like, so it's new metal, basically. It's new metal rock. It's like, imagine if Nickelback were trash. Anyone who thinks Nickelback are trash, immediately, like, by law, you must stop listening to the podcast at this point. But the thing is, right, when they came out the first time, they had that one song, and everyone had that one song at the time. Like, Spineshank had New Disease, and Il Nino had some god-awful song that I can't even remember. But there was always, like, bands like that, and you had the few other ones like Papa Roach, Slipknot and stuff who just continued to, like, put out bangers, but they only really ever had that one. I mean, there's this one video, I can't remember what it's called, but they literally, the guy, like the vocalist, this Chris, whatever his name is, Chris Taylor, I think it is. He does this jump in the video, right? And it's one of those like superimposed like early 2000s videos where he jumps, right? It looks like he's jumped basically like 4 stories high. The shot freezes until the drop, and then he falls down and he lands it, and I'm like, even at the age of like 14, when maybe that came out, even then I would have sat in my front room watching MTV2 going, nah, that's lame. That's lame. And this is me, rocking out in the mirror to Dead Cell by Papa Roach with a hairbrush as a microphone, wishing I was in a band.
I'd like to say I agree with you, but unfortunately I don't think I can, because that's the kind of thing I was all over. I remember seeing the video for what's that song that Nickelback did for the Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire?
Hero. And that's not technically Nickelback. That's Chad Kroeger featuring Captain Bloomin' Country. Like,
Son!
Yeah. Is it Josie? Is that Josie Scott? I think it's Josie Scott.
I don't know.
But all I know is... I mean, who even is he? That's a whole nother conversation.
I don't know, but this is kind of my point, is that it all sort of boils down together. It's like, 1, I didn't know it wasn't Nickelback, so I learned something today. And 2, the video was sick because Spider-Man was in it. That's all I cared about. It's like... In hindsight, Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man was a questionable character anyway.
Tobey Maguire as a human is a questionable character.
Sea biscuit. But I mean, I've just lost my train of thought entirely. But you get my point. It's like, at that point in time, I guess maybe it is because I was that little bit younger where I was just like, this is the best thing ever. In that video, like, so it was kind of the same principle. It's like, oh my God, look how high he jumped. Where it's like 2020 me is kind of sat here like, damn, he jumped pretty high. That's
fair. I mean, maybe I've always been cynical. I mean, if you know me personally, which you do, that isn't hard to believe.
No, I can understand that.
Right, so I've just loaded up the Wikipedia page, right, and here's an interesting one, right. So the band started in 1995, and we're now. Let's say we are technically in, that's 25 years they've been going, right? They've had
a good innings.
1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 members in the band currently. Only one other original, which is bass player. So you've got Chris Taylor Brown, who does the vocals and is famously known for running all their social media accounts. Then you've got Pete, good old Pete Chirell on bass and backing vox. He's been there since 1995, so he's either, you know, currently experiencing major PTSD having been in a band with this guy for so long that he just, you know, he's in the abusive relationship and cannot leave. You know, and that's terrible. Or maybe he gets on with it. Maybe he shares the same views. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinions. I just probably wouldn't plaster it all over Twitter.
I mean, that's the problem with a lot of this stuff, isn't it? It's like, I think we've both been sort of subject to this kind of stuff a lot, where it's, you know, once you've got that platform and you've got that voice, it's like, you know, not that we have the largest platforms. I mean, you've probably got the largest voice I've ever heard, and that's saying something coming from me. But like, it's when you get that platform, it's like, it's such a wonderful thing to be able to have, and it's like I like to try and use that in a way to share with people good stuff like this podcast, like to do things sort of that are a bit fun. But then if you're gonna start being a weapon about it, and then get called out for being a bit of a weapon about it, and then be more of a weapon about the fact that you've been a weapon about it.
I mean,
I don't really know where I stand.
I know we've talked about having guests and stuff, but I would love to get him on. I don't even think it's possible. We're definitely not at the size right now, but I'm gonna send out the invitation anyway and be like, come on, Chris Taylor Brown, I used to love your first album. You know, you're entitled to your own personal opinions about things. You know, I mean, from what I can tell, this basically all started when he sort of started trading insults with this civil rights activist. I think it's Bishop Talbot W. Swan II, which in its own essence is an absolutely fantastic title.
Oh, it's amazing. And
was accusing him of having like this victim mentality. And then that went on to him challenging Captain America dude. What's his name?
Is his name Chris Evans, which is hilarious. Because,
I mean, that's funny in another way. But yeah, so essentially, then he called out Chris Evans. And then he started basically saying, you know, that there is actually no such thing as white privilege in society. And he's obviously a Trump supporter, that's fine. That's down to his own sort of like beliefs and what he thinks is politically correct for his country.
Cool, man. Yeah,
no problem with that whatsoever.
No digging that
don't massively agree with going around calling everything the Chinese virus just because someone ate a bat. You know what I mean? Like in that country, that's like saying, oh, the Black Plague happened in Britain, so that's the white people plague. You know what I mean? For me, that just doesn't quite work.
Yeah, but Toby, it's a Chinese virus. It's from China.
I mean,
that's the thing I love about that whole thing more than anything else, is when you just like, you've got people who have been to probably Harvard and some of the other like crazy big. I'm very uneducated with the big universities in the States, but you know, some of those big universities training to be journalists, and they're asking him really important questions about a global crisis right now, and the leader of the United States, and this is not my own personal opinion, this is just what's happened, has responded to those questions with China.
I mean,
work that out, man. Work that out.
I mean, look, I don't have an opinion on Trump. I'm not American, so you know,
likewise,
whatever works for that country, you know, whatever works, that's fine. I don't want to get into that. But what I will say is, like, you know, I mean, it's a bit, you know, I probably wouldn't have called it that. But anyway, moving on. So obviously, Mr. Brown here is an avid supporter, and then he's sort of like, just basically anyone who's been like, you know, it's basically like someone going, Chris, maybe tone that down a bit. He's like, I'm ousting you now, and you're like, mate, I was just saying maybe don't do that. Like, they did this live stream, and I happened to catch a little bit of it the other day, where they did like this hour and a half acoustic set for their fans, and that's wicked. You know, that's exactly the sort of thing that people who can in this position, without, you know, challenging social distancing or doing anything that's going to make anyone unsafe, putting on, you know, stuff for your fans is wicked. It's really cool. It's definitely going to help people who are isolated and stuff to kind of feel involved in stuff. But then you've got this like it's almost like, do you remember that? Was it last year where it was like, you know, everyone march on Area 51, they can't take all of us. It was literally like those same people were then like, right, Chris Brown, we are coming to your live stream and we are going to cause chaos.
Oh, absolutely. So I do feel a bit sorry for him in a bit of a weird way. I mean, I'm not suggesting for a second that he didn't bring it on himself, because he absolutely brought it on himself. But there's two reasons why. One is it became a bit of a meme in itself, and this is something that is obviously more relevant in modern society, is that once it has become a meme, there is no stopping it. It cannot, you know, it's like an uncontrollable force. So everybody was on the Trapt wagon. But the flip side of that is how much publicity and, you know, interaction online has this band, who, in all fairness, are not especially relevant at the moment, had in the last month or so, say, from this particular incident. I'd be laughing if I was that dude right now. I mean, it's not the way that I'd like to go about being in the public eye, for sure. But
I mean, the funniest thing is, like, you think, like, you know, there was, like, jokes posters made of them being, like, because something to do with their Pandora numbers. I don't know Pandora. I use Spotify. I use Apple Music. So Pandora apparently is this big, like, American-based streaming service or something. And they've got mega numbers on there. Obviously, probably, let's be honest, like, I've not looked into the fact, so I'm not going to claim that I know. But I would imagine a lot of it is from that Headstrong song. So they got really good numbers on there. They got numbers that are better than, like, some other bands. So they were doing, like, this parody poster went up and it had, like, I Prevail on, they were, like, main support with how many sort of, you know, monthly listeners on Pandora they had or you know, annual listeners. And that was all there. But you got to think, like, at some point, you know, these bands are probably going to meet, and I reckon he'd probably be just the same in person. And, like, you know, for as backwards as I personally think a lot of his, like, not his views, but the way he goes about things, I think is a little bit backwards. But I reckon, you know, fair play to him, he'd probably hold up the exact same persona in real life.
Oh, dude, absolutely. It's like, it comes to the point where it's like you have to commit to it. And if you're going to be, and I am going to say it again, if you're going to be a weapon like that, but you're a colossal weapon the entire time, then what am I supposed to say?
Well, that's it. That's exactly it.
I could be like, hey, mate, I think you're a weapon. And he'd be like, yep, I know.
You're like, I am, yeah, you know.
I think your band is crap. And then I would probably cry and he would have the upper hand.
Well, that's it, because, you know, I mean, I'll tell you what whilst we talk about this, I'm gonna go on their Twitter and I'm just gonna find some interesting replies that he's sent. I mean, he has now gone out, fair play to him, to say, look, if you haven't got a blue tick, I'm not even going to respond now. So at least he's picking his battles with names that are going to be relevant.
I think it's wonderful, and it's like it's that whole thing, isn't it? It's like adapt and overcome. And right now we're in an environment globally where we have to adapt and we have to overcome. I didn't really foresee that Trapt gaining some form of relevance amongst society via calling people out on Twitter was going to be the way that we were going to adapt and overcome as a collective of human beings. However, I respect that, man. Like, you got to respect that. Like, it's him. I mean, I don't know. Like, for me, it's a difficult thing to sort of. I didn't really give a monkeys in the first place, and I don't really give a monkeys now. So it's kind of where I'm sat. I'm just sort of chilling.
I mean, and the main thing is, I mean, you know as a musician as well as I do, right? That if you like one of their songs, I mean, there's this whole thing, right? This is a bit of a taboo subject, but like I'm gonna talk about it because I want us to be able to.
We're in. We're in.
You know, I want to set the
buckle up, people.
Set the bar. You know where it's going to be set from the get go. Episode 1, season 1. Let's go. This is going off topic, but like, so what I'm basically saying is that even though he's being an absolute, you know, weapon of mass destruction online,
absolutely,
and he's coning down on people that, you know, like that I like other bands I like and that, right? People will still listen to his music, and even though I think he's being a bit of a nuisance, if Headstrong comes on, I'm probably not going to turn it off, and that leads me on to like, socially acceptable to listen to Lost Prophets? Like that, I mean, that is an awkward question, isn't it?
I cannot believe we've broached this
this early.
This early. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say.
I just think what upsets me about that is that there were so many other talented guys in that band, and some of the songs were wicked. But now it's like I just can't do it. I just can't.
It's just like I guess it's when something has been. I mean, you know, we won't go into the details of.
No, definitely not.
That's a podcast in itself. But when something is so tarnished. And I think the problem with that is it's like when you're, especially for people like me and people that are my age and probably your age too, it's like when you're like Lost Prophets were a thing, and like a big thing at, like when I was growing up. There was, you know, you think about some of the big bangers that they had, you know, like Rooftops and Last Train Home, and like big songs that were all over, you know, every kid in the country across the world in a lot of places were, you know, listening to this little band of like 6 dudes or however many of them there were from Wales, like doing their thing. It was so organic. It was so fresh. It didn't sound like anything else really. Like it was, you know, everything about it was great. And then like, but it's just been so horrifically tarnished that it's like, it's not actually it's a moral thing at that point, isn't it? It's like to reset the moral compass and be like, no, this is okay. It's like, it's so hard because those songs are still banging songs, and it was such a massive part of people's lives. I mean, but then obviously that's gone down. It's just an
awkward one, isn't it? Because, you know, it doesn't then matter that there were, you know, the other guys in the band, and that were completely
it's
destroyed
horrible.
by that.
I can't imagine what.
And what he did was unforgivable, and he should remain in prison for the rest of his life.
Agreed, but it's so hard, isn't it? To imagine being those guys, because like that's your friend as well. Like from their point of view, it must have been horrific. I mean, I don't want to dwell too long on that particular guy. Did the first podcast
the point I was basically making was that
is this just become TD and MPAG versus Lost Prophets?
Yeah, we've gone down the rabbit hole. Let's climb out.
Let's quickly get out of this hole before we sit here.
Okay, so I'm on their
back to Trapt.
I've got onto the Twitter.
Yeah.
Right, so back to them, right? So they currently, according to this poster, have, and according to, from what I can see, quite a lot of his replies to other bands, especially metalcore bands seem to have gone for Trapt at the moment. They currently, according to Pandora, have 2.4 million listeners. And they basically they've actually reposted this, saying this is actually pretty funny. We'll do a self-titled 20 anniversary tour where we play our first album in its entirety in a couple of years. That should be fun. The poster's got Trapt, Headstrong 18-year anniversary tour with special guest I Prevail with 610,000 listeners, and Silent Planet and The Word Live. Obviously, all three of those bands have been like, "Come on now, Chris Taylor, you're being a bit of a prat," and he's like, "Nah." Yeah. And it's got the great endorsements by like Walmart and Shell and Squire guitars, and the poster's brilliant. Like, it's really, really amusing.
I've not seen that, but that does sound like a lot of fun.
He retweeted that, and he was like, yeah, and then like the next comment down was like, "This was not a poster we made. It's a joke for anyone who's not getting it." So. Yeah. But there's the comments on there. You've just got like, there's this wicked little video of someone just holding the first Trapt album, walking up to a bin and just dropping it in. So their interaction they're getting from this is massive, and like, I know there's that saying of like, no publicity is bad publicity. I mean, that isn't true. I'm not talking from experience, but I can just tell you that isn't true. I mean, there is, in a lot of cases, any publicity is good publicity, but not always. There's always going to be that 5% of, we could do this, and you're like, no, we really shouldn't. There's under no circumstances should that be a thing. So I guess fair play to him, because he's generating a lot of not good hype, but he's generating a lot of hype about his band.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Is that I guess it kind of boils down to the question we get asked a lot, or certainly I get asked a lot, is to do with branding and to do with things like that. And it's like, obviously that's usually from starting from scratch and doing something fresh and trying to work out ways of doing it. But like, if you can reinvent yourselves when you're in a situation like they were, where they had a relative amount of fame, and then it not disappeared but dwindled somewhat, say, and then at the moment, equally, there's not a mad amount of other stuff going on, to be fair, but they're kind of the sort of biggest talked about thing in the industry at the moment, because everyone else is just having tours cancelled and hating their lives.
I thought about it. I was like, Mike, our manager, if anyone who doesn't know, both Hollow and City are managed by a guy called Michael Goncalves. He's a great dude. He could literally talk, basically, if someone was to put a recorder on for the rest of time, he would still be talking when aliens came and we became like a new analog civilization living on
when
top of upside down period. He'd still be going. But anyway, so he asked us this question the other day where he's like, "All right, everyone, say a band that current or no longer going, that if you wanted to see them live, who it would be?" And we'll post it on Facebook. And it's an interesting question that people might be interested in. It was cool. It did all right. But I said, Trapt for a laugh. And I was like, the reason I said that was like, that's a bit of a talking point. And we got some people going like, Christ, TD needs to reevaluate his show choices, like laughing smileys. And but then you go, well, do you reckon like some bands are like jumping in on this guy now? Because, his views are pretty extremist in certain respects.
Dude.
But just to get a bit of a, if he replies, then we can post about that sort of thing.
But of course they are. Like, this is the thing, isn't it? It's just like, is doing things for the sake of it, to me, it's like, sometimes you get a happy accident and it's lovely, and I feel like this for him is a happy accident. Like, he's been a bit of a tool on Twitter. Like, that's not my opinion necessarily. Like, that's just he's spoken out on Twitter. People have jumped on it, and he's just riding the wave at this point. And it's like, that's cool. I think if you're jumping on it sort of deliberately to try and get a reaction, it's like, that for me is more of sort of like, it's, I don't want to say that I'd be pointing fingers there rather than at him, to be honest. It's like, he hasn't deliberately gone out thinking, I'm going to turn myself into an internet sensation. I doubt anybody is smart enough to think, I'm just going to start calling out, because it's not like he's calling out the biggest bands in the world either, is it? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And from what I can see, right? No. He's not gone like, oi, James Hetfield, like, you know, I
Yeah.
don't like you, so here's some facts that you're not going to like.
Yeah, exactly that.
But for all intensive purposes, dude, this hasn't been a recent thing. He's been doing this for ages. So it's only coming to light now because he's probably had a run-in with that Bishop dude. But going back to the initial, so if we go full circle back around to where I started this conversation, they have had a lot of members, and a lot of members haven't been in the band for very long. Like, so between, let's say, one, two, they had like two guitarists. Like, one guitarist was in the band for like, from what I can tell, like a year. So like, there is like stuff out there where apparently he's quite difficult to work with. But then, you know, I mean, past members, let's have a look. So including the current members, and this is 25 years, so they've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So if we were to do some quick maths, and we're going to go 25. Now, I'm not that great at maths, so I'm gonna do it this way. 25 divided by 18. So they have basically the average length a band member survives in Trapt is 1.4 month, but 14 months, basically. So I mean, you know, that there you go. That's TD stacked facts for episode 1. There you go. If you were to be an average member of Trapt, the mean, the mode, or the medium, whatever it's called, you'd be in there for like 14 months. There you go.
14
there you
months.
go. Happy knowledge. 14 months in Trapt.
I mean, I think it's like I say. I think sort of with that as a general thing, it's just it's taking like. Obviously, bands have been impacted in a bunch of different ways, and obviously we'll move on to some of that stuff as well. But it's like right now, it's entertaining. Like if nothing else, I'm just the flip side of the coin is that he's entertaining people, and then
what do they call this business we're in? It's the entertainment business.
Well, this is exactly it. We're in the entertainment industry. There's not a lot going on. Everyone's thinking of things to happen. I do believe that's why we're in a situation where this is actually relevant at all, to be totally honest. I don't think if the usual hustle and bustle of the industry was happening right now and bands were on tour left, right and centre, at the end of the day, nobody has got anything better to do right now than to sit on your Twitter account and just get your popcorn out.
And that's it. And let's be totally honest. We live in the age of the witch hunt, don't we?
Absolutely that. It's like, I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, but when someone's opening themselves up as an easy target, I'm not surprised people are jumping on it, and he's lapping it up. So it's like, well, he's
probably sat there with a whiskey just having a laugh at everyone.
Exactly. He's probably just laughing at everybody else thinking, this is brilliant, I'm having the time of my life. And when he wants to stop doing it, he'll stop. Or
he just won't, and he'll keep owning it. Like,
exactly that.
I'm a weapon, but, at least I know it,
Exactly that. This is the thing. And I think it's just got to be... I think when you take it for what it is, it's entertainment. And I do think... eventually, the world will go back to normal. We're living in a weird time right now, and I think the world will go back to normal, and this probably will be a distant memory, but it's been fun while it's lasted.
That's it.
And, at the end of the day, he's probably, if he's gone through 18 members in 25 years and he's still kicking about, this isn't going to be the thing that kills him off anyway. So it's just like, do you know what I mean? He's still going to be there at the end of all of this.
Still playing
What's
a song from 2002. I mean, it's so funny. Well, he is headstrong. I mean, anyone who's got an album called No Apologies is going to be that guy.
That's it. I mean, we should have seen it coming, really. He's laughing at us. This is the problem. He's a headstrong
dude.
You. No Apologies.
Chris Brown, you've got one over on me. Chris Taylor Brown.
Chris Brown, that's a different conversation altogether, dude.
Right, that's it. But anyway, we've gone on a tangent already, but basically they did this live thing, and like that kind of brings you into the next thing of like, this is a very weird time for bands, and I've had a lot of messages, I'd imagine you have as well, about like
of course,
how this actually affects. I mean, obviously, again, I'm guessing the people who are going to especially listen to this episode, and anyone who's down the line gone back to listen to early episodes, I'll explain this story now. But I play in a band called Our Hollow Our Home. You should probably know that. If you don't, then, and you found this by mistake, then we're a metalcore band. Mikey, MPAG, plays in a band called THECITYISOURS, and they also play sort of metalcore. They're slightly more poppy than us, but we're good friends. We've been playing shows together for years now, and our paths cross a lot. Like Mikey's our guitar tech as well, and stuff like that. But we were meant to go on tour in April and May 2020, so that's now basically.
Don't, man. Don't.
And then
don't do it to me. It's too painful.
Coronavirus was like, that tour, nah, you can't go.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. People have lost their lives all around the world, and it is a global pandemic. It's like someone has loaded up Plague Inc. on their phone and gone, oh no, I've taken off demo. And I've screwed this, and we have to roll with it now. So, you know, and that's hit everybody. It's hit a lot of our friends' bands. It's hit like Skywalker. They toured with Hollow last year. Wicked Dudes, Envisions, again, a band we're both really good friends with that have had to have their tour pulled. And it goes all the way down from the low level shows. Like, I mean, I work with some bands and like even the smaller bands who like were playing like 2 or 3 shows in May or 2 or 3 shows in April. Everyone's had everything pulled all the way up to like your mega bands and like download festivals gone. And that's something I never thought I'd see.
No, it's a bit of a wild.
It's hard, isn't it? And
like, I think I don't know about you, but in some ways it makes it. I don't know. It's like a two-sided coin. So I'm kind of sat here, healthy, with a house to live in, with food on my table, thinking,
and
it
toilet roll stacked
and toilet? Oh, it literally is as well. Like they're only not because I've been panic buying, I should say. They just seem to only be selling the big packs. It's like they're deliberately trying to fuel the fire on that front, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole either.
No.
Just toilet roll is present in my existence. There's people out there that have got it much worse than me, but however, that I don't feel that you should therefore just be like, oh, okay, well, you know, these things are important to people at the end of the day, and they're important to us as musicians, but they're also important to people that were coming out and going out and buying tickets to shows, and it's an escapism for all of us in different ways, and we all play different roles in that. So I think it's a bit of a difficult conversation because for me, I don't know about you, but like it's been easier to accept because it's affected everybody. It's like there's literally nothing we can do about it, and everybody's out here trying to make the best of it. And that for me is kind of a really big thing and a really important thing to consider, because like if this had happened and it was through a fault of, you know, of me or one of my band members, or, you know, a problem with our crew or something, it's like that would be much more difficult to stomach than. Yeah, like I'm gutted that we can't go on tour because I was really gassed for that tour. It was the longest tour City had ever done. Obviously, I was excited to bring the boys out and do some stuff across the water as well. But like at the same time, it's like, yeah, you know, we're just trying to make the best of it. We're all just trying to stay healthy, and it's important that we all just stay at home and do the things that. Well, that's it, and you know, it's like you said, so that we can continue to do this in the future. That's the important part, really.
Well, that's it, and it's hit everyone, hasn't it? And it's not just our industry; it's every industry, and like. You know, I see a lot of messages like, oh, we want to help the bands out, we want to help this out. And like for those messages, like I'd never, obviously, you know, everyone's at a financial loss. Like everyone lost money on tours that got cancelled. Agents have lost their income. You know, crew members have lost their income and stuff like that. And it's horrific. But at the same time, like now that everyone's in, especially in the UK, like I don't know about the rest of the world again, if you're listening from like overseas, but we're basically on a lockdown. As it currently stands, and we're recording this on Monday, the 6th of April. We can go out of our house to go to the shop. We can go and do one bit of outdoor exercise today, as long as we remain 2 meters away from anybody else. And that's about it. You can't, you know, you can go to a pharmacy or you could go to the doctors if you had to, but that's basically it. And you've got to stay 2 meters away from everybody. So, you know, that means a lot of people are out of work. So unless you're a key worker, so unless you work at a supermarket or you know, for like the medical industry, you're not, you know, you might not be getting paid. So I don't want to be taking someone's money. That I don't want someone to feel like they have to buy like a Hollow shirt to help us out when they might not necessarily have the money themselves. You know, they might need that to buy food and stuff. So, and then the other side of it, which I find, which I think a lot of people, especially like fans of bands and, obviously, this could have effects in like various like industries, but especially for bands is like the repercussions of this when it does go away. Because there's a lot of fans I've spoken to me like, when are you rescheduling the tour? What's happening? And you're like, well, okay, so look at it this way. So Hollow are currently planning to reschedule the tour with City and stuff for September, but so are every single band that were touring basically between that period of time. So then you go, okay, so let's look at London. How many bands are going to try and get into London in September? You know, it's going to be an influx.
This is the problem. It's a massive problem in the sense of it's the industry has had to shut down, which means that everybody is at a point where then as soon as the industry reopens again, effectively, and this goes for multiple industries, not just music, but obviously this is the one we're involved in directly. As soon as it reopens, naturally you have to go for it and you have to try and do something about it. But there's no the uncertainty, I think, is the thing that's killing everybody, and you start questioning your own thought process almost, and it's like
it throws timelines completely out as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely,
I mean,
it's like
look at Bury Tomorrow. They put their album back to, is it July now? It was meant to come out like this week, I think, and you're like, you know, like as a music fan, you can't even begin to imagine like how much organization and things has to go into like an album release and things like that, and like throwing timelines all over the place. Like, you know, you might have studio time booked that you didn't have to move. You might be having to release music. I mean, like I feel really bad for Behind Blue Eyes because they've literally just put an album out and now can't tour support it.
Dude, Behind Blue Eyes, shout out to, I'm actually wearing their gear right now, so that's a good little, a nice little thing. But yeah, no, honestly, it's such a shame. Obviously, we know those guys really well. Kian is actually touring Tech for City at the moment, so there's a little knock-on effect there. Great dude, great band. We were at their album release show a few weeks ago, and it was awesome. I was so like, I don't know, I don't want to get like soppy, but like so proud of the way that they'd like I've known those boys since the very, very beginning, pretty much, for them, and to see them in, you know, a packed room. Yeah,
it's awesome. It's awesome feeling, London. Especially when like it's friends of yours and you can see someone actually
absolutely,
like,
man. And it was just like, and then to see it just kind of like, obviously they're at a point now where it's sort of had to come to a grinding halt at the worst possible time. But the flip side is that it's not the end for everyone. And I think that's the thing is, and this goes for, you know, our industry, people in general. It's like, it will get better. And I think that's really important to remember is it's like, you know, it's it's a tough time to be a human being on the face of this planet right now, without getting too
100%,
sort of
100%.
philosophical. Like, forget about everything else. If our music, our music careers or our bands or whatever ended tomorrow, touch wood, hopefully not, but you know, if they ended tomorrow, life would still go on. And that's the thing. It's like that time's not going to stop for anybody, and eventually it will get better. And that's the thing. I think it's one of those where, particularly from, you know, people, to sort of come back to what you were saying, is with people saying that they want to help fans, helping bands and things like that, and bands helping each other. And in some ways, it's actually going to rejuvenate the industry. And I think it could actually end up being it's sort of the shake up almost that. And I think this goes across the board as well. It's not just about our industry as a, we're talking about that because it's the thing that we know about more than anything else. But it's almost the shake up that we needed. The environment's in better shape. Obviously, people is, you know, we're not in particularly great shape as a race at the moment, but in terms of the planet is, you know, it's going to be getting a sort of a breather almost from being punished by traffic and everything else. So, you know, relentlessly.
Yeah, it's taking a bit of a turn.
Exactly.
It's like, people aren't driving around all the time, but now, you know, Chris P. Taylor is literally assaulting the internet.
I mean, yeah,
with verbal diarrhea on the daily.
Maybe.
But yeah, no, exactly. I get what you mean, and it's like, it's not the end for everybody. It's not the end for bands. I mean, some bands, I'll be honest, I know bands personally who are really struggling with this because, like, you know, D's Nuts, for example, Hollow have done quite a few shows with those guys before. They literally were out with Skywalker. They did like one show on a bus tour, and then the bus was like, yeah, we're going home. And you know, the financial implications of that is mega.
Oh, it just makes me,
you know what I mean?
Makes my heart hurt just thinking about it. It's just like, it's one of those, again, where you just, it's that balance between assessing what's, what's important to you, but also looking at the bigger picture. And it's like, you know, the bigger picture of that, you know, it's cost City money, it's cost Hollow money, from our own personal, you know, experiences, but to the money it must have cost those guys. And it's like, it doesn't even bear thinking about, does it? And I think that's why it's just important for, if we're able to support each other in different ways, and it depends, obviously it might be financially, it could be through, you know, even just talking to each other and doing things for each other. Social media is a massive thing. Well, that's it.
It's all about everyone sort of like, you know, especially like the music scene we play in, like the whole like metalcore or post-hardcore,
for sure,
alternative, whatever you want to bracket it as, there's a lot of like unity there at the moment, which is quite nice.
Absolutely.
And like, you know, in a lot of ways, I think that's growing. And it leads on, like, you know, like, I mean, did you watch the Parkway documentary went out?
I haven't seen it yet, but it is something that I want to. It's one of those where I want to sit down and make sure I can watch it properly. Almost, obviously,
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's wicked. It's really, really good.
I haven't seen it.
Awesome.
I think it's an amazing thing for a band in our genre, particularly a modern band, to be getting that kind of exposure. Through their own work. That's the thing I think that's really important. It's always something,
and to put it out on a platform where everyone can watch it.
Exactly
as well,
that.
Because
it's like,
you know, that they could have gone like, right, it's going online for stream purchase, or you can rent it, but they're like, no, it's going on YouTube. It's going on at these 2 times. Watch it. That's wicked. And like, I've seen, I think Core Community Facebook page have been like live streaming loads of different band sets from things. That's really cool, especially if you're a music fan and you want to like kind of watch a live show. Like, I wish Hollow had some footage. Like, actually, we do. We have some from Hungary that's probably on YouTube. I might actually share that playlist on our page. But that's another story. But yeah, so yeah, COVID-19. You know, if you want to go now, that'd be great.
Grand. I think the main thing is just that, you know, if you're out there and you're listening and COVID-19 has brought you to this podcast and you've managed to sit through it to this point, it's like, hang in there, man. You've done a good job of hanging in there.
You got this. You've done
You've
all right.
made it this far through this podcast. You've made it this far through lockdown. You've made it through, you know, whatever you're going through in your area, wherever you are in the world, and it will get better.
Hopefully that's it. And hopefully you've not had to go to Tesco and fight a grandma for a pack of 6 loo rolls,
goodness
or
me.
you know, like, hopefully that's not been a thing. But yeah, I mean, you're going to find with these podcasts that this happens a lot. We'll go on a tangent and we'll end off down a road somewhere. But going back to what the start of the previous section was, which was we were meant to do a tour, brings us on to like the main focal point, probably about God knows how long in already. 45 minutes in and we're just getting to the meat and potatoes of this podcast. Right, there you go. Touring is interesting. So you may have seen the title for this particular podcast was Vans and Bands versus Economy Hams.
TD and MPAG versus Vans, Bands, and Economy Hams. And that probably doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people, unless you've been out on tour. But let me tell you, son, listen up, Sonny Jim. Buckle in, my friends.
You're about to learn about ham.
Down. I'm about to go ham with my man.
On ham.
I can't think of another word. I'm sorry, I'm out. That's it. That's my rap career is over.
That you set that up, that could have been so good. But you've absolutely you've basically gone up to pitch a baseball and then just walked away. Like the crowd's gone quiet. You're gonna, or maybe I should use let's use an English terminology here. So you've stepped up to take the penalty. Everyone's gone silent. You've set it up. It looks wicked. And then you can like, nah, have a cup of tea instead. Nah, I'm all right.
I mean,
so cheers, Empage. Disappointment from me, probably from the listeners as well. So I hope
start as I mean to go on. Really, I can't. I promised that I would give it my all, and unfortunately, my all is no more than 2 rhyming couplets at one particular time. So I've given it my all. I've done my best. And that's probably another minute that we've just spoken about something absolutely.
Well, tune in next week to there you go. See you later, everybody. No, right. So right. I get asked a lot, and I'm sure you probably get asked a lot, like, oh, touring must be the best thing ever. It's like you're on holiday. You know, there's this big sort of like, almost like wall. There's a big wall that everyone go, oh, you're living the dream, you're touring. Like, yes, playing shows to 1 person, to 100 people, to 1,000 people who know your songs and are singing words that you've written about something you care about back. I'm not going to lie, it's the best feeling in the world. There's nothing better.
I agree.
There. But it is a job. We are trying to make a career. Yes, we're trying to make a career out of something we enjoy doing because life is too short to be miserable. It's hard. And I personally find one of the most weird and hard aspects of it is being in the van. And being in the van for a long period of time. Yeah,
like, I think, I will say this now before we get any further. I think it must be, it is a job, and we do take our music very seriously, but we would not be doing it if we didn't enjoy it.
Oh, 100%.
And I think that has
100%.
to be, we have to make that clear now, because I've got a feeling it's about to get a little bit negative in the vibes department.
Well, you see, I mean, there's a part of me that loves the cabin fever that comes with the van. Like, there's something about being weird with the boys. Like,
there's something about,
I mean, some of my band. You've been in my van.
There's something
you've
about
been in the hollow van.
About you with cabin fever that I think is just. I just think if you haven't. You have to see it. It's one of those things where once you've seen it, I was warned. Goncalves took me to one side, and he said to me, I remember we'd just done it was when we were doing, I think it was Wage War and Slam Dunk and those things, and he was saying to me, yeah, it's gonna get weird, man. It's gonna get weird. And then some really weird stuff happened in that van, which I'm not sure if we're allowed to talk about that. We didn't talk about this.
I probably wouldn't. No. I mean, nothing dangerous or like really weird, but just a bit
let's
strange.
Just say I was inducted into the Team OO, the crew fold. Literally a fold. I was involved with some folds. And yeah, like nothing weird, nothing. I mean, a little bit weird, but nothing weird, nothing booky. But It's a weird place to be in that van. I think the thing that people miss when we talk about touring is, we're playing shows every night, and it could be, again, like you say, in front of 1 person, 1,000 people, 10,000 people. that's for probably at best at the time that we're where we are now is probably for an hour a night, an hour a day.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that people miss out is it's when you're on tour, you could be on tour for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe longer in some cases. You're playing for an hour a night. There's 24 hours in a day, and there's a lot of days in 3 weeks.
Well, I mean, look at it. Imagine, to put it in perspective, like if you take out, obviously you've got load-ins, you've got sound checks, you've got load-outs. Sometimes you might have a meet and greet. Sometimes you've got sitting on merch or whatever. So even if you were to average out, let's say 6 hours a day at the venue, maybe 8 hours a day. 8 out of 24 hours a day. Right, I'm getting the calculator back out. I'm not good enough at mouse, but I'm going somewhere with this.
It's a third of the day, man. At least two-thirds of the day unoccupied.
So let's say we've got 24. Let's times that by 24. Right, so let's say a 24-day tour. You've got 576 hours. Let's divide that by 3. Okay. So you've got 192 hours at venues. But let's go back and look at the other figure. So 24 times 24, 576 hours minus whatever figure I just said. I can't remember. I'm rubbish at maths. Right. Divided by 3.
Something, whatever it was.
Right, remember 192. Remember that.
Times it by 2, fam. Come on now.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, look at that. There you go. Maths.
Quick maths.
So that is 384 hours of weird.
It gets so weird. Like, oh my.
I mean, that equates to 16 days of 24 in the van or in the hotel and traveling and seeing the wondrous offers of the Gregs on the M6 and, having a KFC at Lip Hook service station that it's not fresh. It's not crispy. The chips have been there for about 45 minutes and, it's a less than friendly old lady serving you your blooming bottle of water at WH Smith's. It's not always a pleasant experience. And even in Europe, it's even weirder because if one of those, let's say, you've got 16 days there, that's going to be at least 2 Sundays, and nothing in Europe opens on Sundays apart from petrol stations and McDonald's. And you eat a lot of McDonald's on tour. I'm not going to lie. Like, Hollow have had this really weird thing where every year, this is the first year for the last 3, we've not done it, where we've ended up on tour with McDonald's Monopoly at the same time. And one time we were like, oh, we've got away from McDonald's Monopoly, went to Europe and it started there.
Oh my days.
And we were there with like a German train station and an Austrian map going, well, we can't use this one because that's a different one. So that's even worse. But yeah, so the van time is the weird thing because the longest drive I think Hollow have ever done was from Southampton to something like Gothenburg in the van. It took us like 4 days, and I cannot even begin, dude, to explain to you. I mean, how we went through in moment in memory, the 5 stages of grief. Yeah, I've been there more than once for obvious reasons, but that was a clear indication. And denial, we can't have 17 hours left for just today's worth of driving. Anger, I can't believe we've got 16 hours left. Bargaining, can one of us fly home? Connor, hashtag no, say what? You know what I mean? It's just weird. And you when you're trapped in essentially what is a metal box.
Yeah.
For that amount of time, you cannot expect to be normal when you get out.
No, it's one of those things where I think it's almost the genius of the whole thing is when you're like, it's like the hidden secret almost, and I guess that's what we're trying to sort of give a slight insight to without sort of giving away. Yeah, like that's the thing is
breaking the fourth wall.
There's certain things that we just can't talk about. Like I say, my first insight into the Hollow van was an interesting experience. Obviously, things like to get a little bit into that territory, things like if you are a gentleman, it's easy to use the bathroom without leaving the van, and that was something that I hadn't really experienced until I came out on tour with you. Obviously now I'm a pro. Like I've
I mean, I'd quickly like to point out that is never really a first choice, yeah. but it is a choice.
Yeah, I mean it's never something. It's not something we enjoy. But sometimes needs
it's a thing that happens to everybody. It's like the rites of passage. In some
really
respects.
is. So it's one of those things. But I think it's almost where the best memories on tours are often created are in those environments, but they are also the most difficult in a lot of ways. Like you build your relationships with your bandmates, with your crew in the van. Obviously, when you get onto the level of playing in buses and things, when you're multiple bands together and multiple touring crews together, it's like those are the memories that
they're some of the best, dude. I mean, like having done Never Say Die in the bus. I mean, you had a couple of nights in the bus. I did have a couple of nights in the bus. It's a lot easier because you're going to bed and then you're waking up where you got to go. So you're not going to be getting you've got a couple of hours left to drive. Whereas, like, for example, Josh and Nick drive Hollow and we have a trailer, so we can only go about 50 miles an hour anyway. You wake up and you're like, cool, that's only another 250 miles to go today. And then we've got to do another 150 miles when we leave because we've got 400 miles to cover tomorrow. So there's no going to sleep in the van when Nicky T's activating Night Rider mode and you're doing about trying to do like 70 on like this blooming like Czech Republic dirt track road because we've got to try and cut across a mountain to save that extra 300 miles. So, and then like obviously you've got no personal space in the van. Your bunk is like literally your only area where you can be. And if tensions are high or someone's having a hard day, that you don't really get the personal space. And that's where the hard aspects come from it. But saying that, some of it, like you said, is amazing. Like I remember one very strange drive. Me and Bobby continually sang the DuckTales theme tune, probably for about an hour. And that for some reason, while thinking about it now, would be really, really irritating. And I think if you were to ask Connor, he'd probably get PTSD right this second thinking about it. Was very, very funny to us at the time. Very funny, and it wouldn't be funny in any other situation. It's just in that sort of scenario where you've literally you've had your 9th monster blooming ultra. Goncalves is there like fretting because we've not had a cigarette stop in the last 3 minutes, and Nicky T's listening to Carry On My Wayward Son while driving arguably too fast down this dirt track. Josh is making some weird ass noises trying to sleep in his bunk, and Connor literally just looks like he wants to end himself and yeet himself out the window. Yeah. It was funny, and it was, and I think it always will be to a degree. Yeah,
that's the thing. I think you it's one of those where it's different for every band, and I think that's the beauty of it. And there's bands, you overlap. Obviously, City and Hollow have overlapped a lot in the past, and certain tendencies that we both have. I think that's obviously part of the reason that we get on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
As we do, for sure. But we had a similar thing with Careless Whisper, where that is still a classic where we laugh uncontrollably about that. And I can't really tell you why. It's like every time you hear Careless Whisper, we'll be sat. I remember being sat in a coffee shop somewhere, Careless Whisper came on. And you imagine being sat in a coffee shop, and I was somewhere in the UK, I mean, Nottingham maybe. I was sat in Starbucks, and there was probably half of the touring party together. And Careless Whisper came on. Imagine being the guy that sat on the other side of the room enjoying your gold blend or whatever they call it, blonde blend cappuccino, and reading your copy of probably the Daily Mail. And all of a sudden, 5 grown men start pissing themselves at George Michael in the corner. I'm sure it is mad, but that's the thing. Like, that's what's the beauty of it, and the charm of touring. And I think it's the public perception of that, and the audience perception of that is that touring must be so amazing, and it's like it's a roller coaster of emotion. And I think that's the thing that people don't realise, and that's why the fans. It's certainly in my. I'm sure you probably agree, but in my experiences, when you've had a really like rubbish day, and we've had some rubbish days on tour, the same as most bands have.
Oh, it happens, doesn't it?
You just have those days where it just doesn't, nothing goes well. Everyone's done that to certain extents, and that's just the way that it goes sometimes. But when you've got that happening, and then you've got those, people coming to your shows, bought tickets, bought merch, coming out,
it just makes everything worthwhile, doesn't it?
It's every single time you do it again in a heartbeat. And I think that's the thing. It's like it's no matter how bad it gets, and it gets bad. We've all had some really ropey experiences on tour in multiple different ways. I'm sure we could both talk for hours about that. But I think it's really the thing of like, I guess what I'm saying is it's like I think everybody's perception of touring is that they're right, but they've got it all wrong. because
that's
like
probably the best way I've ever heard it put.
That's literally it. It's like you're exactly right. It's the best thing in the world, but the reasons that you think it's the best thing in the world is completely wrong. And it is the little, it's the beer on a ferry at 1 o'clock in the morning just because you can. It's the trip to the service station to McDonald's for the 19th time that week, but your tour manager says that he could start a fight with anybody and beat them in a cage match. Like, yeah. I'm not pointing fingers, Ian, but like that happened. So like, it's one of those things. It's like that's the beauty of it, and I think that's the thing that people. And it's the other thing that's great from a band's point of view is that is completely personal to each individual band. And
that's it, because everyone's different, and there are people out there who just can't hack it, and there are people out there who do it, and they probably don't get weird. I mean, I've never met a band who hasn't had some degree of weirdness, but you see some bands who have like two guys who are a bit weird, and the others are like putting my headphones in, sort of like shutting my eyes and hoping to God we get to the venue without someone throwing a packet of skips at my face.
I feel like my band can be a little bit like that sometimes, to be fair. It's like, I think we all go through different phases of weird, and we don't seem to, I think again this probably happens in most bands, but we don't seem to mesh those times together especially well. So like I'll be, I back in the day I used to do a lot of the sort of tour managing side of stuff for my own band because we couldn't afford to have somebody else do it. And if our TM wasn't available to come or whatever. So I remember one time we were in Glasgow and I parked the van outside a hotel, and I arrived back to find that Jay and Louis had a fight in the street. And Louis had a graze on his back, and I'm fairly sure Jamie didn't have a t-shirt on, but I mean, we don't know. I can't remember exactly. I just remember it being like uber weird. And in that moment, I was just like, what the hell is like, what's happened? I went across the car park, parked the van, came back, and there has been a full blown, like, obviously play fight. They don't actually hate each other. At least I don't think they do. But like, they'd had this full blown play fight. But then there's other times where like they'll be trying to be serious and like they'll be trying to have a nap or something, and I remember one time Jay absolutely ruining me because I was screeching Daniel Bedingfield at the top of my lungs, and he just destroyed me. And that's the thing, is that again it's I guess like I say, the beauty of it really is that like, the perception of touring is very much that
holiday,
this is the case. It is, and it is, but not in the way that people think. And I think that's what I would probably take away from it. I guess is that it's that you're absolutely
like,
right.
It's literally like, I mean, it's like I heard it the other day that it's the bipolar industry because it's the best of times and the hardest of times all at the same time. Because whilst we could be having a great laugh in the van watching Nicky T try and eat, I don't know, 10 curly whirlies in 5 minutes because he reckons he can, when legitimately it is not possible. It cannot be done. Science dictates that the toffee is just too chewy. And then there could be someone else in the van literally like really having a hard time with missing home and stuff at the same time. And like I'd like to think that we all support each other in those moments, but like, we used to have this we don't do it anymore. We used to have this really bad thing we call bonus round, where if someone was having a hard time, we'd immediately target that person and be like, they're showing a sign of weakness, go in now.
But that's the thing, is like you do get weird moments like that, and I think that's the beauty of it really. Like I say, it is about like those bonds and those relationships that you build in that scenario. I just don't think can be emulated in any other way. And I think it's a really, like, obviously when you're touring with your own band, when you're touring with other bands, it's like to be in that fold in whatever way, and each time it's different as well. That's the thing, is that it's you have your own ways and you have your own, like, you'd have your hollowisms and we'd have our cityisms, and every band's got their own little things that they do. But when you cross those over with each other, when you're touring with different bands as well, you get
some weird dynamics, don't you?
Yeah, but it's great, like that those dynamics unfold in different ways.
I always thought Hollow were pretty weird, and then we met Skywalk, and I was like, now we're good. That. Though I love those guys, but they are strange.
Yeah, but like I think it's just, and like the cultural like nature of it as well. Because I remember when we did the Never Say Die tour, and it was like there's Australian bands, there was obviously like Crystal Lake from Japan, there was all these like different bands crossing over, obviously Great American Ghost coming over from the States, and then we were just there as like your boys from like
You just some polo
kicking out with polo. Like, hey man, do you have a beer? Go on then. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah,
all right, mate. Yeah, I'll have a beer.
Lovely.
Yeah.
All right, go on then, Sam.
Love those dudes.
That's what I mate. They're some of my favourite dudes in the whole world. I think they're amazing. But like, you get the idea. It's like, and you can see different people looking at, we're there going, oh yeah, do you want to go for a beer, Sam? Yeah, go on, Mikey, mate. Yeah, I might have a beer. And then you've just got like Alpha Wolf in the corner, just like, yeah, Mike, you just want to go and hit a blunt, mate. Like, I'm just like, do you know what I mean? It's like, but that's the beauty of it. Like, everyone just crossing over with each other and just having like this weird. It is a holiday, but not in the way that you think. This ain't no Butlins, fam. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, this isn't it. You've not gone down Thomas Cook's and got yourself a sweet week in Tenerife for $300.
This ain't no Mauritius. Imagine going to Mauritius, but flying around it for 23 hours a day and then being allowed to go and walk on the beach for an hour. That's basically what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to end the Vans and Bands segment with the thing that you tend to find the most, which is, I mean, you definitely would have experienced this on a level, is when you're driving to one place and you're driving past the place you need to go tomorrow. It's literally like the worst. There was one time we had to be in Frankfurt. We were going to like Erfurt or something like that, and I was like, oh cool, isn't that the road with the venue on tomorrow? And we're like, yeah, where are we going? Oh, another 300 miles this way. And you're like, oh cool, love it.
Yeah,
mate.
man, like,
wouldn't change it for the world, but Christ, it annoys me,
dude. It's one of those things. It's the best part of the job, the best part of what we're doing here, and it's the reason that ultimately writing the albums and everything else. We'll get into detail in some future episodes about that as well, because it's a totally different. I don't know about you, but like.
At this point in the podcast,
entity.
mate, I kind of wish we could have some sort of virtual show of hands of who made it this far. I'm going to do is I'm going to say the bar that Logic has gotten to in like 10 seconds, and if someone writes in the comments that bar, I'll know at least one person watched, and everyone else will probably just copy them. So I'm at bar 1989. Cool. So
jeez,
if someone
am I. That's so weird. Oh my god.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, one person will write that, and then everyone else will be like, I'll listen to the whole thing, and I'll be like, cool. Well,
I skipped.
Yeah, there you go. You skipped. So screw you for missing out on that wholesome TD and MPAG like wholesome content. Hopefully you're sat at home. You've got your digestive biscuits or a hobnob, a nice cup of tea. You might be sat at home watching some telly, and then be like, oh, I'm going to listen to TD and MPAG. You might be reading a book. God knows, you might be in the bath. I don't know, but I'm just glad you're here.
I mean, thanks for coming. I mean, where are we at? What do you want to do? Do we
ham?
Oh, let's talk about ham.
We're gonna have to.
So, economy ham was the third thing. So the running joke, riders is one of those things where to explain what a rider is for people that don't know, is basically when you arrive at a venue and you're working with a promoter or you're working with a venue or something like that, you'll get something called a rider, or sometimes you'll get something called a rider.
It's your tea.
Where it's basically your dinner. It could be.
You get lucky sometimes. They're like, yeah, here's a crisp £10 note each. Everyone go disperse around town, and at that point, that's like your premium grade. I mean,
that's sweet buyout.
Your platinum edition rider is like, here's your buyout, but don't worry, boys, because we've also hooked you up with this sweet hot buffet on arrival. And obviously, as the bands get bigger or you do bigger tours, the riders are better. But on the flippity flop, Mr. Michael Page.
I guess between our experience, neither of us are in a position where we are, demanding bottles of Kraken and things like that. Usually, you'll get something. But I would imagine that my experience of riders with my band is probably a little different to yours. Generally speaking, the standard you will get is water and beer. So that's level one. That's entry level. Welcome. First of all, you're playing shows to your mates. That's the first thing.
It. So you're there. You're getting some beers. You might get a drinks token. I mean, I'll be honest. We have received beer more than water, even when we've been we don't want the beer. It's like, you're getting beer. All right, cool, fine.
Yeah.
Italy specifically, that was like that.
But I think that's like entry level is no rider for you. The next step up on that is when other people have got rider and you haven't.
Oh, that's some of my favourite. Especially when there's been a member of my band who I'm not going to mention who has taken something from someone else's band's thing, and then they've been like, where the hell is our such and such and such? And we've been like,
so that's level 2. Level 3 is when you get your first rider, and I remember getting rider for the first time, and it was like Christmas had come early. And I'm not joking. It's probably a crate of Carlsberg or something in this country, or the local alternative. wherever
it's
you
normally
are.
carling, isn't it? It's
Oh,
normally
carling.
carling.
Oh, tins of carling.
Or those
Ugh.
little stubby bottles you get from like...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't even know what they are, but you'll get that and you'll get water. And that's like entry level. Welcome. You are now a band that receives rider. And then
You get to... What I would actually... Now, this is my favourite tier because it's the funny tier, right? This is probably the most common of all of them. So when you get to you are getting a rider, Hollow have put bets on these items being there. And it's always the same. It doesn't matter if it's, UK especially. This is like UK edition mid-tier rider. I know. Right, so ham is there.
you are definitely getting a packet of economy, cheap of the cheap, 50 slices for 39p ham in your rider. That is a thing. I mean, welcome to the club. If you're in that position where you're just teetering on this tier, enjoy, my friends, because this is going to be wonderful.
It's like,
you are
if
getting that ham.
if you're driving an hour and a half and you're going to be like, right, come on, boys, we're going to set off at 1:30. Everyone have some lunch first. Here's the down low. Don't have a ham sandwich before you leave because you'll be having it for your dinner.
Do not do that. And you may also, you can do a thing with the rider where you can tell the promoter in advance. You can send your rider through and say, hey, we're all vegetarian, or hey, we're all vegan. Let me tell you now that the promoters do not care.
There's this certain
you
thing.
are.
There's a lot of amazing promoters out there. I don't want it to feel like we're dissing on them.
I am.
There is this
I'm
thing. Like, I
just-
don't know if there's like a set of like that tier promoters who have this set of glasses that they put on when they're like, oh, band sent over a rider, and it automatically translates things like, I don't know, salad or fruit into ham. Or it's like, oh, they've asked for some, I don't know, some peppers and hummus. That looks awfully like economy bread and ham to me. Actually, that's actually what I'm reading, so that's what they're going to get. I mean, and then you get like these weird adaptation versions of that where you'll be like, well, I don't know about you, Mikey, but if I'm having a ham sandwich, I'm just talking like ham and bread. You've got to have butter or something in there, haven't you? Otherwise, it is dry.
See, now here's the best part, because here's something that I found to be more common than I first realised. I remember taking a bit of a joke and taking the mick out of this a little bit, but it's actually genuinely a thing. Because when I first started off, it was ham and it was bread, and sometimes if you were lucky, you'd get some cheese as well.
And you'd get the biggest, and it's always like the 48 pack of crisps made out of cardboard.
Yeah, exactly that. So that's your rider. Now, if you're then going up to the next level, which is like, let's call this level like, I don't know, 1.5.
Yeah.
Because you haven't quite got onto sort of what I would call full rider yet. But it's my favourite part is when you get margarine or butter or
knife.
spread.
I know where this is.
Or something.
No spoon.
And no knife.
There's no butter knife.
You get no knife. There is no nothing. So you end up taking the bread
It's every
and
time.
wiping the bread. I'm gonna address the camera directly. You take the bread and you imagine this is her. You are wiping the bread on the butter
We've all done it.
to make
We've
your
all done it.
sandwich. And the problem is we've all been there and we will all be there again. That's the worst part, is that you are then literally using the bread and the butter to butter the bread.
And the best
It's like,
thing, and it's even better, right, when they've put it in, I mean, I'm going to call it a fridge, but it's essentially a freezer. So the butter is literally a brick. So you could use it if you like, there's been a bad storm and like part of my garden wall has come down. It's like, well, don't worry, because, the Crooked Heart in, I don't know, Essex have supplied us with a brick of butter that literally could be used to forge an anvil. So you're there wiping your bread, and it's, like when you go to butter with, if you've got a knife and you've got like this ice cold butter, you're trying to put it on toast or a sandwich, and your knife is literally, it's messing that bread's day up. It looks like it's been it looks like you've put like a child in a fight with Mike Tyson. It's just the bread's no more. It's gone. And you're there going, well, now I've got to try and swipe my bread like a contactless payment across what is essentially a block of solid steel.
And this is the problem. Is like, I think it's almost become, again, it's become a bit of a meme, hasn't it? It's like that is your rider, and it generally doesn't really matter what you ask for either. It's like that's what you're going to get, so be prepared for it. I remember when I first started writing riders, I thought that was the done thing. I didn't realise I could request other stuff, but then when I started requesting other stuff, it didn't change anyway. So what was the point? I should have just saved my Word document and sent out the PDF that I sent out before.
I think my favourite one was like one time, like, and this was early days, and it was I think this was a European rider, so there was a degree of maybe misunderstanding our rider. But we'd put on there biscuits, and we'd put on there something like custard creams. So obviously you can imagine my confusion to being given a pint of cream and a box of cold custard upon finding our rider. So I'm like, well,
I love that. A pint of cream.
I'm pretty sure Josh ate the custard cold.
I was going to say, did you get involved in that though? Because that's the important part.
I didn't personally. I think I probably had a ham sandwich. To be honest though, like I it still comes for us. We tend to be in the level now where we also get hummus and occasionally the pack of economy chicken. So you have got the two sort of varieties of
chicken roll.
It's called meat, but it's not.
I like the my favorite one is when you get the real when you get pasta that's been cooked and then put in the little metal tins and it goes all sweaty.
Oh yeah, that sounds absolutely wonderful.
Sweaty pasta is a good one, and that's for me. It's almost like you move up the run, and let's call that level 2, level 3, where you're getting this sort of hot food. And the difficulty with that is that as much as we're sitting here taking the mickey out of it, is that in that scenario, a lot of the time, as much as I'm so grateful because promoters is such a difficult thing to do right now, to be a promoter, particularly in the UK, is a really tough job. And we've worked with some absolute diamonds all over the country
100%.
That are wonderful. But when you're presented with the hot, sweaty option, that ham sandwich has got your back, man. I'm just saying it now. Like that economy ham, it's that economy ham. It's the same economy ham I had yesterday.
You're going back for the sandwich.
But I'm going back for the economy ham, my bro.
Too bad,
I'm going back for that economy ham, and that's what I'm saying. And I think it's one of those. It's like a staple. It doesn't really matter where you are. That economy ham is going to be there, and it's gonna have your back regardless. You ain't getting no food poisoning from economy ham. You ain't getting no disappointing dinner. Do you know what I mean? I don't really know what else to say.
And let's face it, the economy ham on tour is the consumable version of your sleeping bag. It's always going to be there for you. It's got your back. You know what it tastes like. It doesn't matter if it's Aldi, if it's Lidl, if it's Spar.
Yeah.
It's all made in the same terrible way.
And it's not
and
ham.
yet always tastes the same.
Yeah,
but it's familiar.
I think that's the thing. It's like a comfort blanket. Like
that's it. You need it, and you'd miss it if it wasn't there.
Yeah,
unless
absolutely.
obviously you're like Parkway Drive and you're getting like all the good stuff. But like one time we had Marks and Spencer's like finest ham, and I was like, this must be what it's like to like drink the tears of children or something like that. This is premium grade ham, and you find yourself going on. And some riders you get better, but I guess is it probably a good point to mention now that any promoter out there who's listening to this being like, these guys are bastards. I've gone out, I've spent my £10 monies that I've got left after the show's budget, and I bought these guys the best ham that my £10 can buy, and they're sitting on their podcast with 4 listeners with people going, oh, we don't like ham. I want to put it out here now for any promoter who's ever booked Hollow and that's given us anything, whether you've given us a Kinder Egg or a full roast dinner, we are eternally grateful because it's money that we then don't have to spend out of our own pocket.
I completely agree, and I am also an advocate for the ham. I've said it already. I am an advocate for the ham.
Just keep it on there. Just keep it on there.
Make sure that ham is there. I think the ham is definitely going to have to be something that we ask about. Well, let's think about wrapping this up, I guess, because we've been waffling away for a while.
Yeah, we've done an hour and 18 minutes now. That's pretty good.
I've had a nice time. I think it's been a lot of fun so far.
Been a good laugh.
It's just nice to do something different and have a bit of fun. But yeah, so we will be back next week, I suppose, hopefully, or next time,
yes.
Shall we say, with episode 2, which will be featuring Dan Kerr from Avenue Studios, which is going to be awesome. But I guess for now, really, this is probably about time we should be thinking about wrapping this up, I suppose, isn't it?
So obviously this is a new podcast. We're on all the social media platforms. This should be, in theory, on YouTube. We might put the first couple on Facebook as well, because obviously that's kind of an easy place for people to watch it. It'll be on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you find your podcast. Hopefully this should appear there. If you could, please share the pages and stuff like that. Obviously, it helps more people hear it. It's someone you think might enjoy it. If your grand's like, oh, I really wish I knew more about metalcore. Well, maybe this is a good place for her to start.
I wish I knew more about ham. Then we're your men, basically. But yeah, you can find us on all of the social media, so you can go and check that out. And yeah, I guess for now, I suppose that's it. So
No, I mean, if you've got any questions you want me and Mikey to tackle, or like, you know, if you're like, oh, I wonder if T and MPAG, what are their thoughts on like the Eiffel Tower? I mean, I think it's an Illuminati conspiracy personally. If you want to know the answer to that, by all means ask, because you know what, it probably will make for some slightly interesting content. Or absolutely not, but you know, we'll probably answer it anyway, because let's face it, we probably got everything else to do.
That's exactly it. Anyway, so for now, out there in the big wide world with everything that's going on at the moment, stay safe, stay at home, do as you're told, don't go outside. If the your local authority or your government is telling you to do something, then please do it.
Yep, stay in.
Keep each other safe. And I guess from TD and myself, we will see you next time.
See you next time.